Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and I'm so happy you're back with me. I'm excited to tell you today about chapter 16 and 17 of Outshining Trauma by Ralph de la Rosa. And at the end of this video, I'm going to lead you through a really wonderful exercise that Ralph writes about in their book at the end of chapter 17 to help kind of reprogram a part who may hold a limiting belief or a painful thought. Okay, so chapter 16 is called The Four Reminders, and apparently this is different than the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism. And the four reminders, I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly and tell you some of Ralph's thoughts about it. But the four reminders are: number one, your life is precious and rare. And myself knows this to be true. So I'm curious how that lands for you. Your life is precious and rare. Reminds me of the Mary Oliver poem, This One Wild and Precious Life, right? Um, let's see. Ralph talks about the mathematical likelihood of your existence is 1 in 10 to the 2,685,000th power. So it's a very rare possibility that you are even born. Um, and your worthiness is your absolute true nature. And to me, if all of our parts knew this at their core, knew their infinite worth, the world would be a totally different place. I think our parts act out because they believe they're bad, they believe they're unworthy. And that's why all these protective measures come in that hurt ourselves and hurt other people. I've said this before, but my experience and conviction is that the original sin is the belief in original sin, is the belief that we are bad at our core and that we somehow are flawed or unworthy. And then all the kind of negative acting out cascades from that. So returning to our goodness, returning to, um, as Brian says, or Richard Rohr says, to Genesis 1, where God created them and it was good, right? That we are good at our core, that we are just lovable and worthy. Sometimes our parts don't believe that. And so we have them experiment with it, try it on, pretend it's true, and see what the fruit of it is. But myself knows that to be true. And so really the healing function of the self is often just what I call the loving gaze of self, where the self just looks on the parts with delight and genuine positive regard, and they feel it and they know it because the self reflects it to them, and that's how they're healed. And then they can drop all their defense mechanisms. Okay, so number two, second reminder is your life is impermanent. And I would say this is true of our physical bodies on this planet for sure. We're not here forever. That is impermanent, though I am convinced that our non-physical bodies are not impermanent, that they existed before we came into our avatar, into our bodies on this planet, and they will exist after. But our lives here are impermanent, and Ralph talks a lot about this Buddhist practice of keeping death in mind and kind of in order to fully live. And it's interesting, Ralph talks about having a conversation with a friend who had cancer, terminal cancer, and that their motto was kind of like, I need to know what to do now, got to do it now. And Ralph was saying, oh, yeah, that makes sense for you. And they said, it makes sense for you too, because you never know how long you have here on this planet. And I had a part at that moment that wondered, I don't know if you can hear the construction. There's a saw. Hopefully you can't, because the headphones are pretty good at the other day, the dogs were barking like crazy, really, really loud. And I watched the video back and you couldn't hear it at all on the video. So Um, sorry for that aside there. But yeah, when this friend said that to Ralph, I, this applies to you too. I had a part that really wondered if Ralph did end up passing before the friend that has cancer. Um, and Ralph talks about having quality of life over quantity. Reminds me of Andrea Gibson. If you're familiar with Andrea Gibson, just an incredibly beautiful poet that was so connected to life and the vibrancy of life and accepted all of life, the good, the bad, the ugly, and put it into such beautiful words, describing things that words cannot express through words. And Andrea passed recently, and I think their final words were, "I effing loved my life," or something like that. So even though their life seemed to be shortened, it had a lot of quality of life. Um, and now Ralph in the book on page 191 goes into a whole section on suicidality, and I'm not going to share all of it with you. I did have someone reach out to me this week and ask, how do I deal with going over Ralph's book and appreciating things knowing that they died by suicide? And I asked, how do you know that? Because all the messages that have come from people who were close to Ralph and their team is that that was ruled out. So I do want to be clear that all the information that we have at this point is that it was not, that Ralph did not die by suicide. I don't know exactly what the cause was at this point. Um, but it is interesting reading this section about Ralph's own suicidal parts. And it's what's encouraging is Ralph kind of compares themselves with Kurt Cobain, who said, if I'm going to die, if I'm going to kill myself, I should take some drugs. And that was Kurt Cobain's kind of conclusion around death. I should just, you know, waste my life away taking drugs. And Ralph said that their system instead organized and said, if I want to die, then I might as well show my heart to everyone and help as many people as I can. And that is exactly what Ralph did. So contemplating death, can cause parts of us to kind of give up and say, to hell with everything. I'm going to do whatever I want, um, whatever's harmful to me or others. But equally, as we contemplate the impermanence of our lives here, and we never know when it will end, we can also decide to fill it with love and life and vibrancy, like Ralph did, like Andrew Gibson did. So, okay, reminder number 3 is you are far more powerful than you realize. And Ralph points out here that one moment of rage can end up killing a person. And likewise, one moment of kindness can save someone's life. That we don't often realize the power that we have, that even our thoughts have. I was listening to the Telepathy Tapes podcast, the talk tracks, and they're actually interviewing a Buddhist man about this. They were talking about how in a lot of Eastern traditions, our thoughts are considered our sixth sense. And our thoughts have this energy, this vibration. They are an entity in themselves, in essence, that can be felt by people around us. So even if we are not saying things, because they were talking about telepathy and how thoughts can be transferred from one person to another. And later, Ralph actually talks about our mirror neurons and how all of us are born empathic or as empaths, right? Where we can receive the energy of other people's emotions, we receive the energy of other people's thoughts, and vice versa. And so that's why we become responsible and for the thoughts that we have, the emotions we have. Not that, oh, we're so bad because we have these bad thoughts, these bad emotions. In my experience, we bring loving attention to quote unquote negative thoughts and emotions in ourselves. We love on the parts who are feeling those so that they feel safe enough to naturally, organically have quote unquote good thoughts or emotions, right? So we're never trying to get rid of them. In the next video, I'm hopefully going to go over a chapter on Tonglen, which is a really powerful practice, has been for me, where we invite suffering in, because our non-physical self that is made of love is capable of holding it, is bigger still. So, all right. So you are far more powerful than you realize. On page 193, Ralph talks about how they don't like the kind of common conception or misconception of karma, and that for Ralph, karma is really translated as a habit, and that nothing could be more powerful than our habits and their cumulative effect. Very true. And then finally, reminder number 4 is that we live in a defective world called samsara, which I believe is the first noble truth. um, it Ralph talks about greed, aggression, confusion, war, starvation, emotional deprivation, a myriad of depravities, and that it's clear that we see this in the world around us. Talked about this in the last video as well. But Ralph says the nature of healing practices is not to turn away from such suffering, but to turn our faces toward all of life, including suffering. We open our hearts, Ralph says, and cry out to the world in the name of love, compassion, and rejoicing in the possibility that no matter what, we can all awaken. So Ralph says, we need you, your power, your love in a world that does include a lot of suffering. And so again, I repeat this all the time, but healing always occurs in this moment as we bring loving awareness and attention to the suffering, first inside of us and then in outside of us. And that's where healing always lies, in this moment, with whatever suffering is here now. Okay. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to move on to chapter 17, which is called You Are Dreaming. And Ralph does have an exercise at the beginning to kind of lead you through those 4 reminders. I'm not going to do that right now. Ralph talks about how perception is projection, and has a whole section about how basically our minds are telling a story, and that our reality is really our brain's best guess at what's going on. And that's why Ralph feels like this admonition in Buddhism to perceive life as a dream is really helpful, because Ralph says, question everything, question everything, especially your own perceptions, and hold them very lightly. Ralph tells this really great story about getting an email from a friend that was just so offensive, and deciding to just put it aside, but then waking up the next morning and Ralph's parts were just so upset about it. And, we're drafting emails in his mind about how to tell that person how terrible they were. And so Ralph decides to rant and write this seething email to the person, and then realizes, I haven't had my coffee yet. And then has their coffee and sits down. It's like, oh, this is pretty harsh. Let me soften it, does a second draft, softens it, and then is about to send it and says, oh, I haven't meditated yet. Let me do that first. So then Ralph spends some time in meditation. And in the meditation, it becomes clear, maybe I should check the original message, the original email from this person. Goes back, checks the email, and realizes that because of certain key words in the email that kind of essentially triggered certain parts of Ralph, that they had read a whole tone and a whole meaning that wasn't there. And that the email was, in fact, quite nice. And so Ralph had spent the whole morning with these parts feeling like they, had been so hurt. And Ralph thought, gosh, I wonder how many times my parts have responded in such defensive ways to a reality that was not really there, and how much other people's parts perceived things that Ralph was saying or doing in a certain light based on their own trauma histories, right? And we do tend to do that. Our parts view everything from the lens of our trauma, right? And they say, never again, I'm never going to let this happen again. And they kind of hyperfixate and filter things through that remind them of the trauma to try to fight or flee or fawn or freeze around it. And they make complete sense. But what the self does as the loving inner parent is come alongside them and say, oh, sweetheart, is it true? Which reminds me of Byron Katie's work, um, the work, as it's called, or the inquiry method, which is essentially to approach painful thoughts and ask, is it true? Can you know for sure it's true? Who are you when you believe this thought? Who would you be if you let go of the thought and turn it around? Like what are the opposite thoughts, and could they potentially be equally true? And a lot of people have a hard time with Byron Katie's work because I'm convinced because it's parts doing the work with other parts. So it's like a part has an irrational thought according to another part, or a bad thought, a limiting belief of painful thought. And the other part is trying to change it. And so it has agenda and it's saying, is that true? Duh, it's not true, right? It kind of has that attitude. And and then this part feels um managed and suppressed and belittled, right? And so that's why it's not effective when it's part to part. But when it's self who's doing it, it's incredibly effective because the self doesn't have any agenda. It understands that the part truly believes this thought of, I am pathetic, or I am a burden, or I'm too much, or nobody can be trusted, or whatever the thought is. And the self just gently surrounds the part, almost like in an embrace, and holds the part like on their lap, rocking them, and says, oh, sweetheart, I know you believe this. Is it true? Tell me why you think it's true. Tell me the experience that you've had that made you believe that this is true. And I'm here with you now. Look around you. Look around at what's here now. Is it still true? Is it possible that it's not true? How does it feel for you when you hold it? How would it feel if you could let it go? It's a very tender, loving, non urgent energy around it. So, okay, that was a little side note there. Um, Now let's keep going on. I already talked about a lot of this. So let's see. On page 201, Ralph talks about a simulation, that we live in a simulation. I like this. It says your brain is already hallucinating your reality, and that our brains basically take all of our past experiences, and then they take all the little pieces of information that we have in this moment and then construct it and put it back out, through our eyes and our senses, to say this is the highest probability of what's happening right now. That's why when something that we've never experienced before happens, we still try to frame it within the framework of something we know, and we may misunderstand it. Um, I like it. This is a common Buddhist experience or meditative experience that I've heard of, that I really appreciate. So Ralph says, let's consider avocados. And notice what happens as I tell you, excuse me, that I had the perfect avocado at breakfast today. It was vibrant green with just a little bit of yellow. It was at peak ripeness, slightly sweet, lusciously fatty, and brought to perfection with a squeeze of lemon and a dash of pink salt. Are you salivating yet? Are you suddenly hungry or craving a snack? Or perhaps you're disgusted because you hate avocados. Um, I've had done this in groups and I've had people do this with, a crisp apple where you can bite into it, hear the crunch and see the juices running, taste the sweetness, right? As I describe this to you, your brain starts producing saliva or, you know, in this image of this piece of fruit and the texture and as if it's really happening to you. And then you have to remind it, it's actually not actually, I don't actually have an avocado or an apple in front of me. And I love this because um, Martha Beck does a lot of work with this. I talk about it a lot, but an exercise that Martha has us do, I'm not going to lead you through it, but you can do it. You can pause and do it after I describe it if you want. You think of your favorite things in your five senses, your favorite thing to see, your favorite thing to hear, your favorite thing to smell, your favorite thing to taste, and your favorite thing to touch. And then you put them all together and you imagine a scene in which all of that is happening. And it's a sure way to have your brain produce dopamine and serotonin and potentially oxytocin, um, because the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. And so when we practice in our brain's worst case scenario, it produces all those hormones as if it were happening. And if we practice, other things, the best case scenario, the same thing happens. And so it's just fascinating, right? Our the way our brains work interacting with the world. Okay. So now um I'll tell you about one exercise and then I'm going to lead you through this exercise meeting with a part and kind of reprogramming a painful thought. So the first one is just Ralph has you kind of like really focus, like you might just focus on my eyes and my glasses and my face and really just see, like intentionally narrow your eyes and focus here. And then intentionally continue to focus on the video on my face, but be aware of your peripheral. So it's not like you're focusing on the peripheral, but like right now I'm aware of the trees and the banister over here and the hammock and the tree there and the walkway and the window. Right. I'm still focused here, but I can choose to also have like an awareness around me. And this is a way of literally softening our gaze is to you still can make one thing your focus, but be aware of the context around it. And um, I think Ralph is saying this is one way whenever our parts get fixated on something and have like a very narrow view, we can do this exercise literally with our vision to give them perspective that it's not only this thing, there is a wider perspective. And I often explain that the self, the capital S self, my experience is it pans out and it has this really vast perspective and can see the points of view of all the parts who are very laser focused on certain details and aspects. And the parts are often either or, and the self has this all and perspective. So that's just a little exercise you can do. And now I'd like to lead you through this one to get to know a part. And you can pause here and you can come back and do this exercise. You can listen to it and just see what it's about, or you can follow along. And as always, you're always welcome to pause whenever need more time with something. Okay. Ralph calls this addressing a belief with a part. And let's go ahead and just quickly do our fivefold foundation that Ralph has taught us. So you might take a couple deep breaths and just find the posture of self. Has a straight spine. Kind of imagine a thread coming from your forehead or from your chest, shoulders back, strong spine, soft front. You might melt your face, relax your shoulders. Deepen your breath. And then just begin to breathe naturally in and out. Noticing when you have an in-breath, an out-breath, and the space between breaths. With your eyes closed or open, just notice where you are in space relative to the room or outside or the world, wherever you are. And as you keep breathing, imagine that that in-breath is going into your heart and out from your heart. So now we've got the breath coming in and out, expanding our heart space as we sit here in this strong yet soft position. And I will lead you through this exercise. So I invite you first to think of a limiting belief that you hold. This is perhaps, well, it is a belief that a part of you holds, but something that is painful, that brings some kind of suffering to you. So it might be something about how you're not worthy or not good enough or too much. It could be something specific about I am such a blank person. It could be something about other people. People always fail me. People cannot be trusted. The world is a terrible place. So take a moment to think of one thought that is painful for you. Just deal with one right now. Just dwell on that belief for a moment and see if you can sense the part inside who holds it. Just be open to receiving. You might just notice a sensation in your body or an energy around your body somewhere. You might see an image. Again, there's no right or wrong here. Just see if you can welcome this part. We're not here to judge them. We just want to know more about them. So focus on this part that feels or believes this belief. And see if you can get in a space of self-energy toward the part. So you might ask the part to come in front of you. You might notice how you feel toward the part. You might invite any parts that do feel frustrated by this part or have any kind of opinion. Let them know they can be here, but ask them if they might stand next to you so that you can perceive this part with genuine delight, with genuine openness and curiosity. And if you're able to feel curious toward the part, ask them about their belief. You might ask, where did you first get this message? Or what was your first experience receiving this message? And you don't need to think of an answer. Just wait, even in nothingness, to see if the part will show you. They might bring a flash of a memory. They might show you symbols, sensations, words. Be open to however they want to communicate. When was the first time you got this message or had this belief? And once the part starts sifting through memories or begins to kind of realize how this belief became internalized, just let them kind of hand to you the memory that really solidified this belief, or the central memory. There may be many, but perhaps there's one. It might be the very first one or the biggest one. Let the part be in the memory if you can, and feel the pain of the situation. Let them know that they're not alone in it, that you are going back into this memory with them. And so you might even imagine yourself, your current adult living self, walking into that moment and seeing that part or sensing that part there, and the pain that they're experiencing, how they got that belief. Just let them show you whatever they want you to know about it. And you're welcome to take your time with this step if you want, and just keep asking the part, is there anything else you want me to know about this experience? Until they say, no, that's it. And you might consider, as you're just observing this experience, who or what is the source of the belief? And are they reliable? Are they a reliable source, or are they confused? And just, you can notice this, you can help the part notice. And again, if you want to pause between any of these questions, you can. You might also ask, is there intergenerational family or cultural lineage that props up this belief? And if so, where does that come from? Really notice if there's others around the part who also believe it. And you might even ask the part if it wants to continue to carry this belief through future generations or not. Sometimes the part might have fears about abandoning other people, and you can do all kinds of things. You can address the selves of ancestors or family members even that are living, and ask them if it's okay for your part to release this burden. Again, you might also just gently ask the part if this belief is in alignment with self-love, with self-compassion. And just see if it is or not, a yes or no. And you might also look at the ways perhaps this belief has hurt you or others. Again, not in a judgmental way, not to judge it or shame it, but just to observe if that's true or not, if this belief has caused any harm. And then you might ask the part, is there a more accurate or useful view that could be taken? You might help the part widen their perspective a little bit and see if there might be a deeper or wider truth. It can be really helpful for the part to notice how this belief might have helped them in a certain moment of trauma or difficulty, or to fit in socially, but how it might be harming or hurting them now in other parts of you. And see if they are willing to release it, how that would feel to them to let it go. And it might be an experiment at first to just release a little bit of it and see what happens. Just see if they're willing. And if they are, you can ask them where they have carried this belief, this burden, in or around their body. But just let them show you. Ask them what it's been like to hold it, to carry it. And then if they are able to release it in this moment, you can ask in what way they want to release it. And it's really up to them. It could be one of the elements through wind or fire or water or earth, but it can also be in any way that they want to release it. And they can release any portion of it that they want. We're never trying to force anything until they feel safe and ready, and it's of their own free will. So if they have agreed to release some of it, go ahead and set that up for them and just breathe with them as they attempt to release. See what happens, how it feels for them. What would it feel like to not carry this belief? To burn it in fire, to blow it out, to cleanse it with water, bury it in the earth, whatever they want to do. And just stay with them in that until it's complete. And then just notice how the part feels. Does it feel lighter? Does it feel, you might just ask them, how do you feel now that some or all of this belief has been released from you? You don't have to carry it anymore. And then ask them, what would you like to replace this belief with? So this is really the reprogramming step that is so, so important. So if the belief was, I am bad at my core, perhaps they want to just try on the belief of, I am good at my core. I am lovable. I am innately worthy. I am just the right amount. I am a worthy, infinitely worthy being. I am whatever it is, let it come to them, what they want to read into their thoughts. Once they tell you what that is, just visualize the energy of that belief entering your body. You might breathe it in. You might imagine it coming over you like water, absorbing into your skin. Just imagine, repeat the new belief several times and just let this part thoroughly absorb it. And it might feel a little unusual at first. It might be an experiment. That's okay. And if you want, you can give this part a nickname or ask them what they want to be called. You can map them or journal about them if you'd like. And it's really important to remind them of this new belief every day, once a day, for several weeks in order for them to really be reprogrammed with this new belief. So you might even set a reminder on your phone, or you might write the new belief on a sticky note, put it on your mirror so that when you wake up, you see it, and you might put your hand on your heart or wherever that you felt that part in or around your body and say it, breathe it in, remind them, see how they're doing, see if they need anything from you. They might need you to witness another experience. They might have a question. They might just need affirmation and comfort. So thank this part for showing you what it did. And thank any other parts who maybe gave you space and stood next to you. And if you want to take time to ask them what they thought about this experience, you can do that as well. So I hope you appreciated that. The real reprogramming, honestly, is in the 21 to 30 days after, um, when you continue to connect with the part and try on this new belief, right? And to see how they're doing. So I encourage you to do that. And if you have any questions about anything I shared in chapter 16 and 17 or in this experience of reprogramming, um, I encourage you to put that in the comments and tell me about your experiences. And let's see. Let's do, if you watch to the end, let's put in the comments like something about reprogramming. So maybe a computer or what else would be reprogramming? I don't know, anything that represents reprogramming to you. And I'll know that you watched to the end. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next time.